This video is an attempt to figure out what is going on in Putin's head since he has amassed more than 140,000 troops on the Ukraine border. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. In my video of January 2022 titled In the Ukraine Crisis Searching for the Demon in Putin but Coming Up Empty, I gave my assessment of the current situation on Ukraine's border with Russia and Belarus about Russia's amassing of more than 115,000 troops. For the past 2 weeks, Putin has sent more troops to the border and is about to conduct joint military exercises with Belarus. Even though Ukraine is asking the United States and other nations not to be alarmist about the situation, many believe that Putin is planning an invasion of Ukraine. Evidence points that way, though diplomatic efforts are being made to avert it. It is not easy to figure out what is going on in Putin's head. He keeps decision making close to his chest. But why some news analysts get the picture wrong is that they analyze the situation only in terms of the United States and the West being traditional enemies of Russia and China being Russia's traditional ally. The situation may appear to be so on the surface, but that is not reality. In Cold War thinking, Russia and communism were the aggressors trying to bring the entire world under the boot of communism. Russia intervened in the affairs of other nations and made alliances and wars to make that a reality. China, being a communist nation and a neighbor, was a natural ally. The United States made alliances and intervened in the affairs of nations to prevent communist takeover of the world and save itself and its allies from being annihilated with nuclear weapons. Russia too made military decisions to prevent itself from being annihilated under the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. The reality is that till the early 1990s, particularly after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, very few people knew that the real threat to world peace did not come from Russia, but from Germany and China. The reason is that the world did not know about the secret alliance between Germany and China since the late 1950s and early 1960s. After World War II, Germany needed to develop nuclear weapons and ICBMs to be able to defend itself against any nuclear threat. Due to occupation by the Allies, weapons could not be developed in Germany itself. I am sure Satan then guided the Germans to develop the weapons in China. Soon after the weapons were developed and tested in 1964, China raked up an old border dispute with Russia covering an area of about 20,000 square miles. Chinese communists also started accusing Russia of revisionism. The two nations had a military skirmish in 1968 and 69. The breakup of relations between China and Russia was deliberate at the urging of Germany. Since the development of nuclear weapons and ICBMs in China, China and Russia have never been allies. China has been allied with Germany. Thus, China is not Russia's friend. If China ever felt it had military superiority over Russia, it would not hesitate to go to war with Russia and annex as much of its territory as possible. Thus, Putin has very strong reasons to fear China. This is the reality Russia and Putin face. In any conflict between Germany and Russia, Russia is absolutely certain that it will mean full-scale war with China. After all of Germany's nuclear weapons and missiles are located in China. Germany will not hesitate to use them in a war against any nation. When we consider the geopolitical situation faced by Russia, it has nuclear armed NATO on its western border and nuclear armed China on its south and southeast. The USA took immediate action when the Soviets put missiles near its borders in Cuba. If Germany, Russia, or China were to make an alliance with Mexico and install missiles there, The US would issue a threat that the missiles be dismantled immediately. If the demand was not met, the USA would not hesitate to invade Mexico and take control of the missiles. Nations in the UN may accuse the United States of being the aggressor, but the United States will not give ear to what nations in the UN think about the issue. It will do whatever is necessary for its security. That is the logic that drives Putin's decisions. The United States and the West are used to thinking in terms of Russia being the aggressor. I don't think Russia is the aggressor any longer as it was in the days of communism. Most of its foreign policy is security and economy driven and not for world domination. Russians felt more secure when Russia was surrounded by other ethnic peoples in various states of the Soviet Union, and those ethnic peoples also felt secure. Russia and the former Soviet republics no longer have that security. China can threaten the former Soviet republics, now independent countries, and then pose a threat to Russia itself. It also shares a border with Russia. On the west, NATO countries can pose a threat to Russia. We must realize that levers in China are pulled by Germany. Germany and China want a war with the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and the State of Israel. They do not want a war with Russia. If possible, while they are pursuing a war with the United States and Britain, they want Russia engaged in a war of its own so that it cannot fight with Germany and China. Germany manipulates its alliance partners to keep them in turmoil in the geopolitical situation and also initiate wars, and if possible, to fight the entire wars while it cheers them on and provides any support needed, short of committing its military to the wars. It has operated that way ever since the end of the Second World War and has had a hand in most conflicts around the world. It is certainly manipulating events behind the scenes on Russia's western borders. Russia must have its own intelligence about how Germany is manipulating events behind the scenes. Nobody sees Germany doing the manipulating, but many nations have borne the horrendous effects of their manipulation since the end of the Second World War and being involved in conflicts with many of their soldiers and civilians dead, while Germany did not lose a single soldier or civilian in any of these conflicts. The lesson to learn from this history of Germany is that Germany is a master at cajoling or inveigling other nations to fight wars while cheering them on and promising to become their staunch ally and help them in economic development. If any of its alliance partners lose the war, they will have only themselves to blame. But if they win the war, they will become Germany's allies and Germany will help them with economic development through its own businesses, which also will benefit. That is how the Pashtuns of Pakistan and Pathans living in India have benefited, having instigated and fought 3 wars with India, in which Sikhs were the main targets. For the same reason, Indians allied with them, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, have benefited financially by receiving technical and other help with their businesses after they manipulated events so that Sikhs would end up doing most of the fighting with Pakistan. Germany has been pursuing a similar strategy in Eastern Europe. In a January 25, 2022 article, the Trumpet.com reported in an article titled Germany's Economic Takeover of Eastern Europe. The article states, Coface, a French insurer, released its annual ranking of the 500 largest East European businesses. 2021 saw many German corporations among the top 20 spots. Skoda took the number 2 spot with the second largest turnover in the region. Skoda is headquartered in Czech Republic but is a subsidiary of Volkswagen. Volkswagen Slovakia was 6th on the list. Audi's Hungarian branch was number 8. The German supermarket chain Lidl's Polish branch ranked at number 10. The Hungarian branch of MVM, a German energy company, ranks 13. Bosch's Hungarian branch was 17th. When analyzing these countries individually, the level of German influence is even more apparent. Skoda is the Czech Republic's largest corporation. Volkswagen Slovakia is the largest company in that country. Audi is Hungary's second largest corporation. MVM is the third largest, and Bosch is the fourth largest. The only countries whose largest companies are domestic are Poland and Lithuania. The German economic relationship with Eastern Europe is so extensive that GermanForeignPolicy.com declared on January 12 that all roads lead to Berlin. When Germany owns businesses in other countries, it puts German masqueraders in those countries in charge, and those corporations employ as many German masqueraders as possible in the highest paying jobs as possible. These German masqueraders get rich and then financially support masquerader politicians in those countries. With this strategy, Germany already has a great deal of economic and political leverage in East European governments. Just as it has been trying to use its influence with Modi's India to start a war with the United States and Britain and their ally the Sikhs of India by murdering all 50 to 60,000 of them in the Indian military services, it is coercing Eastern Europe to be prepared to start a war with Russia with the promise of much greater economic development after the war. Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline under the Baltic Sea from Russia directly to Germany will ensure that Germany has its energy supplies. Currently, the pipelines that supply natural gas to Germany and other countries of Europe pass through Ukraine, Poland, and Belarus, from which these nations earn billions of dollars in transit fees. If Nord Stream 2 becomes operational, these nations will lose those revenues. Therefore, they would not like Nord Stream 2 to become operational. If Nord Stream 2 becomes operational, Russia will be in a position to blackmail Ukraine and Poland by cutting off their energy supplies. Thus provoked, Ukraine might be persuaded by Germany to go to war with Russia to take back Crimea and the Donbass region from the ethnic Russian separatists. That seems to be the intelligence Putin has, which has prompted him to move nearly 140,000 military personnel to the Ukraine border and into Belarus for military exercises. To ensure its energy supplies through Nord Stream 2, Germany is staying in the good books of Russia by not supplying weapons to Ukraine. It also wants to operationalize Nord Stream 2 as it would ensure its energy supplies, provide revenues that Russia desperately needs for its budgets and the economy. By getting its energy supplies through Nord Stream 2 instead of pipelines through Ukraine and Poland, it will gain leverage over both countries as it can divert some of its own energy supplies to them if Russia tries to blackmail them by cutting off their energy supplies. Therefore, Poland and Ukraine will be forced to do Germany's bidding. Since Russia will be in a position to blackmail Ukraine by cutting off its energy supplies and depriving it of revenues by using Nord Stream 2, Ukraine will be forced to make the decision to join NATO and the EU for its security and improving its economy and ensuring its energy supplies. And that will threaten Russia's security. Putin's intelligence tells him of that likely threat, prompting him to amass troops on the Ukraine border. Putin will do whatever is necessary to defend Russia. He cannot be expected to get involved in conflicts to defend another nation if the conflict involves China and Germany. He does not want Russia to be destroyed in nuclear strikes launched from close to its border in China. Unless directly attacked by China and Germany, Putin will not involve Russia in a conflict with them. The consequences can be terrible for Russia, even though it will be able to inflict terrible consequences on these nations as well. So, what are some of Putin's other calculations for amassing troops on Ukraine's borders? We know that Germany's overall goal is world domination, but the first goal is defeating the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and the State of Israel. For that purpose, it has hundreds of millions of German masqueraders and their allies in these countries, armed, ready, and willing to start a deadly civil wars. But these civil wars will probably not start until Germany and China take the step to initiate the war, perhaps with nuclear strikes. The reason I say that is that German masqueraders have already tried to do it in the United States by urging African Americans to do so by starting the Black Lives Matter movement after the death of George Floyd. However, on being informed that the African Americans being killed were not innocent people killed by racist police, but criminals who were put to death for their crimes, the protests petered out and the hoped for violence did not materialize. But after a nuclear war is initiated, the survivors will then engage in civil wars in the United States and the British Commonwealth nations. The war to defeat the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and the State of Israel will likely be a very short duration because of the use of ICBMs and nuclear weapons. Then Germany wants to capture as much territory of Europe as it can and bring the nations under its control. With the existing boundaries of NATO, only Belarus and Ukraine are the major European territories left for further expansion. Putin cannot allow the European or German Empire, known in Bible prophecy as the Holy Roman Empire, to expand to Russia's border. When Russia placed nuclear weapons in Cuba, the United States acted. Putin, in his calculation, will not allow his security situation to deteriorate to that level. He will not allow Ukraine to even be in a position to negotiate with Germany and Europe to become part of the European Union and NATO. After his recent visit to Russia, President Macron of France has stated that Putin has assured him that he will not escalate the situation and that Russian troops will withdraw from Belarus after the joint military exercises end. It seems Macron is doing Germany's work diplomatically to keep Russia neutral in Europe's war with the United States, Britain, and Israel. However, President Biden of the United States has seemingly thrown a spanner in Germany's works to use its economic and political leverage through German masqueraders in positions of power to cajole Eastern Europe to be ready to go to war with Russia. He has stated that if Putin sends any tanks or troops to Ukraine, the United States will make sure that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline does not become operational. That will make Germany's energy supplies insecure. But Poland and Ukraine will have their energy supplies and pipeline transit revenues secure. I think this threat by President Biden has been issued to deliberately give Germany a strong pretext to go to war with the United States and Britain. This situation will force Germany to fight the war with Russia on its own with its ally China and Modi's India, rather than having Eastern Europe do most of the fighting if Russia does not stay neutral. On the other hand, Germany may still use threats and its economic and political leverage to be ready to go to war with Russia if called to do so under the NATO umbrella. But the risks for Russia are too great in risking a war with China. Russia will have no option but to use nuclear weapons if attacked by China because it lacks the manpower as compared to China. Then, on its western front, it does not want to allow manpower to become overwhelmingly in favor of the European Union. That's why Putin is threatening to attack and capture Ukraine and force it within the Russian orbit if Ukraine decides to declare that it's joining NATO. He already controls Belarus. He is also hinting that he will try to pry Romania, Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania from the NATO orbit. When Russia's security is threatened, Putin is not willing to take any chances. However, Russia will not be willing to intervene in a war between Germany and China against the United States, Britain, and Israel because the risks of nuclear annihilation are too great. In my opinion, Putin will choose to play neutral in such a war. Now, do you see that in news analysis as well as statements of world leaders, the chief culprit, Germany, that is scheming to start the Third World War as it did the First and Second World Wars, is not even mentioned? There should be no doubt in anyone's mind that it is Germany is manipulating events behind the scenes to start the Third World War. It will try to use all the economic and political leverage it has in Eastern European countries to be prepared to go to war with Russia for the purpose of economic prosperity. That is likely the intelligence Putin has, which has prompted him to amass Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. But for the time being, I tend to believe Putin that he has no plans to attack Ukraine unless it takes precipitate action by declaring its intention to join NATO or the European Union, or prepares its troops to take back Crimea from Russia and the Donbass region from the separatists. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel and Facebook channels, Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, to view and get information on the latest videos. Some people do not have the time to go through the full length of videos. They find it more convenient to read the text of the video. Unfortunately, YouTube does not provide the facility to make the text of my videos available on YouTube. But fortunately, Facebook does provide that facility. So I make the text of my videos available on my Facebook channel, which you can easily copy.